Hello, and welcome to Spectral Searches. To further investigate the equipment being utilized for ghost hunting, I thought I would address another common device. This is the KII EMF reader. The KII EMF reader detects electromagnetic fields, which ghosts, spirits, and other paranormal events are said to manipulate in some way or form. However, electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, are naturally and artificially occurring. So how do we know what is natural, what is artificial, and what is paranormal? To dive into this, we'll need to get background on what electromagnetic fields are. Electromagnetic fields are fields composed of electric and magnetic fields. Electric fields are created by differences in voltage. The higher the voltage, the stronger will be the resultant field. Magnetic fields are created when electric current flows. The greater the current, the stronger the magnetic field. An electric field will exist even when there is no current flowing. If current does flow, the strength of the magnetic field will vary with power consumption, but the electric field strength will be constant. So this moving of an electric field will generate both an electric field and a magnetic field, or an electromagnetic field. There are several natural sources of electromagnetic fields. Electromagnetic fields are present everywhere in our environment or are invisible to the human eye. Electric fields are produced by the local buildup of electrical charges in the atmosphere associated with thunderstorms. The Earth's magnetic field causes a compass needle to orient to a north and south direction and is used by birds and fish for navigation. Almost all of the energy available at Earth's surface comes from the sun. The sun gets its energy from the process of nuclear fusion. This process occurs in the sun's core or interior, where temperature and pressure are extremely high. During most of the sun's life, energy comes from the fusion of hydrogen nuclei. In this process, 4 hydrogen nuclei are fused, forming a helium nucleus. Energy is released because the helium nucleus has a slightly lower mass than the 4 hydrogen nuclei. This energy eventually makes its way to the outer regions of the sun and is radiated or emitted away in the form of energy, also known as electromagnetic radiation. A particle of electromagnetic radiation is also known as a photon. Electromagnetic radiation, also known as radiant energy or radiation, is spread in the form of electromagnetic waves. The energy that reaches the Earth is known as solar radiation. Although the sun emits radiation at all wavelengths, approximately 44% falls within the visible light wavelengths. Additionally, Earth has a geomagnetic field that protects us from the electromagnetic radiation from the sun. Nearly all of Earth's geomagnetic field originates in the fluid outer core. As this rolling mass of metal moves around, it generates electrical currents hundreds of miles wide and flowing at thousands of miles per hour. This mechanism is responsible for maintaining Earth's magnetic field. Solar winds compress the field shape on Earth's surface and stretches it into a long tail on the night-facing side. It has been hypothesized that this is why ghosts struggle to form under daylight. Ghosts utilize electromagnetic fields to visualize themselves, and the compression of the electromagnetic fields on the Earth due to the bombardment of electromagnetic radiation from the sun causes them to have a hard time visualizing themselves. This is why you theoretically see more ghosts at night than during the day. Additional to the naturally occurring electromagnetic fields, there are also human-made electromagnetic fields. These can be produced from a number of different sources, such as X-rays, the electricity that comes out of power sockets, and various kinds of radio waves, such as TV antennas, radio stations, and mobile phones. EMFs are typically grouped into one of 2 categories, by their frequency. Non-ionizing are low to mid-frequency radiation such as radio waves, microwaves, and visual light. Low-level radiation, which is generally perceived as harmless to humans. Ionizing are a high-level frequency, which has the potential for cellular and DNA damage with prolonged exposure. Examples of this would include ultraviolet, X-rays, and some gamma rays. The existence of static electric and magnetic fields have been known to mankind for a long time. In ancient Greece, experiments with amber on static electricity were reported. It was known that utilizing woolen cloth rubbed on amber could cause the amber to attract small objects. The origin of the term electricity comes from the Greek word electron, which is based on the first reported observation of electricity. Additionally, electrical currents generated by electric ray were applied as therapeutic medical treatment. Also, in China, around 3,000 years ago, the magnetic field of the Earth was used as a compass. In the 17th and 18th century, people started to visualize these phenomena in more detail. Electric blasting machines, which is the first electrostatic generator, and batteries were built. Around the 1800s, the Italian physicist Alessandro Volta invented a chemical power source, the so-called voltaic pile, a predecessor of today's storage batteries and dry cell batteries. Benjamin Franklin developed a lighting conductor, and Luigi Galvani showed in his 1791 published experiments on frog leg muscles that electrical processes are important for living beings. But gradually, the nature of the electric and magnetic fields became better understood with the experiments by Oersted, Faraday, Ampere, Ohm, Henry, Hertz, and many others during the 19th century. James Clerk Maxwell was able to unify all electric and magnetic phenomena with only one system of equations, which is known as Maxwell's equations. This is how the basis for understanding electromagnetic processes was accomplished. Maxwell's prediction of electromagnetic waves was confirmed experimentally in 1887 by Hertz. Exposure to electric magnetic fields is not a new phenomenon. However, since the 20th century, we have increased our artificial electromagnetic fields due to the increasing electrical demand and changes in social behavior. Everyone is exposed to a complex mix of weak electric and magnetic fields, both at home and at work, from a large variety of everyday items. Heating is the main biological effect of the electromagnetic fields or radio frequency fields. In microwave ovens, this fact is employed to warm up food. Our exposure to such radio waves is very low and do not cause any heating of our bodies. However, scientists are also investigating the possibility that other effects may occur from low-frequency electromagnetic fields. To date, no adverse health effects from low-level, long-term exposure has been confirmed, but scientists are actively continuing the research. Low-frequency electric fields influence the human body just as they influence any other material made up of charged particles. When electric fields act on conductive materials, they influence the distribution of electric charges at their surface. They cause current to flow through the body to the ground. Tiny electrical currents exist in the human body due to the chemical reactions that occur as part of the normal bodily functions, even in the absence of external electrical fields. For example, nerves relay signals by transmitting electrical impulses. Most biochemical reactions, from digestion to brain activities, go along with the arrangement of charged particles. Even the heart is electrically reactive, an activity that your doctor can trace with the help of an electrocardiogram. Low-frequency magnetic fields induce circulating currents within the human body. The strength of these currents depends on the intensity of the outside magnetic field. If sufficiently large, these currents could cause stimulation of nerves and muscles or affect other biological processes. But what can happen with frequencies that cause issues? In Effects of Electromagnetic Fields Exposures on the Antioxidant Defense System, Kivrak, Yort, Kaplan, Elkin, and Altoon have demonstrated that exposure to EMF is known to increase free radical concentrations and traceability and can affect the radical coupled recombination. This has shown that it can actually increase oxidative stress in a variety of different tissues of the body. Additionally, in an article in Pathophysiology entitled Disturbances of the Immune System by Electromagnetic Fields, a potentially underlying cause for cellular damage and tissue repair reduction, which could lead to disease and impairment, by Johansson, has demonstrated that exposure to EMF can disturb immune function through stimulation on various allergic and inflammatory responses. It has also been known to increase anxiety and stress. In a study that measured EMF of almost 1,000 homes in the United States, 95% had EMF levels below 3 milligauss, keeping in mind that this is only an average of being below 3 milligauss. EMFs above 3 milligauss have been associated with increased risk of childhood leukemia. Some studies have also associated an increased risk of cancer in power line technicians. So, back to our K2 EMF reader. The K2 EMF readers are used to detect EMFs. In ghost hunting, the K2 EMF reader is used in the belief that ghosts give off, interact with, or even manipulate EMFs, and that an EMF detector, when it lights up, may indicate the presence of spirits. The K2 EMF reader is a single-axis EMF meter. This means that it needs to be rotated around all 3 axes in every single spot before taking a reading. This is something that many people do not consider while utilizing the K2 in ghost hunting. So this brings the question, is this true? Are ghosts really able to be detected or even communicated with through a K2 EMF reader? Kenny Biddle, the former ghost hunter, now an investigator of paranormal claims, says, "I've literally seen ghost hunters at a wall right next to a light switch and had their EMF meter spiking, and they're like, look, there's nothing around that can make this go off." Of course, in a world ever more reliant on electricity, we are surrounded by electromagnetic fields, and it is the duty of a ghost hunter to rule out normal explanations for the readings. But in Biddle's experience, they typically only do a quick look around to rule out anything obvious before concluding that it's ghosts. It has been suggested by Biddle that the initial thought of EMFs being manipulated by ghosts comes from the movie Ghostbusters. Its characters used similar-looking detectors, and EMF meters became popular in the late 1980s and early 1990s amongst ghost hunting groups. This correlates with the release of the Ghost Hunter films. While it was in the Ghostbusters movies, EMF meters are real devices with a real purpose that are used very frequently. If ghosts truly emitted electromagnetic fields, they would be detected by companies that measure such things, such as power stations, which utilize EMF meters to detect leaks. When asked how the K2 EMF meter detects ghosts, the owner of K2 Enterprises, Keith Tuffer, said, "How it detects ghosts? Your guess is as good as mine." He also says, "We don't have a handle on why, and all we know is what triggers us. We know an electromagnetic field passes through here. What generated it, where it came from, don't know. But what we do know is that our instrument is detecting something. It will pick up stray electromagnetic field pulse that comes from a phone, even from the ghost hunter's pocket." So while there is evidence mounting that ghosts probably don't manipulate or produce EMFs, who's to really say? How can we utilize the knowledge of the equipment in such a way as to test if our sources of EMFs are natural, human-made, or paranormal? I think the most secure answer is looking for reproducibility without a known source for residual hauntings, and intelligent communications through an EMF reader for intelligent hauntings. Ask the ghost to come closer or to back away. Ask the ghost if they're able to make the light turn on and off. It may be hard to fully know if the K2 EMF reader is detecting something paranormal, and that's why we utilize it as only one of many tools in our ghost hunting kits. As a way to look for evidence of the paranormal with the K2 EMF reader, Spectral searches will be utilizing this standard operating procedure. Operation of the K2 EMF meter deluxe. Turn on the K2 EMF meter deluxe by pressing the central button. The K2 EMF meter deluxe does not require the button to be held down. Determine a baseline reading of the location by moving about the room or rotating the K2 EMF reader. Be particularly careful around electronic devices, pipes, and wires, as these can cause EMF, which may alter results during an investigation. Be sure to rotate the K2 EMF reader among all axes to ensure proper readings. Document on the periodic recordings checklist any specific comments. Periodically check the EMF of the room to determine if there are any fluctuations. Record this on the temperature and EMF documentation form. Look for any trends on the temperature and EMF documentation form and record in the comments section to be reviewed during the analysis of the investigation. Communication through the K2 EMF meter deluxe. Ghosts and spirits are thought to be able to manipulate EMF, allowing for simple communication to be possible. Sit in a common area with low EMF as determined in Section B. Ensure that all participants have cell phones and other electronics nearby turned off to reduce the risk of background EMF detection. Perform a standard greeting to any ghosts or spirits. Hello, we are only here to ask questions and learn, and do so with the utmost respect to you and anyone that wishes to communicate with us. Define how the EMF will work for the ghost or spirit. When you move toward or away from this device, it will cause the light to turn on. If you can please move toward the device to cause the lights to come on. If there are results, then continue to set primary answers for the ghost spirit to communicate with. Please move toward the device for yes, and please move away from the device for no. Continue to ask questions determined relevant to the ghost and spirit based on the history of the location and based on the results of steps 4 to 6. When finished, thank the ghost or spirit for communicating. Changing the battery. Always ensure that there's a fresh battery and reserve battery on hand prior to investigations. Document on the equipment checklist form. Utilize a Phillips screwdriver to remove the back 2 screws from the KII EMF meter. Carefully remove the 9-volt battery from the KII EMF meter. Uncouple the battery. Replace the battery with a fresh 9-volt battery. Replace the backing on the KII EMF meter and tighten the screws. While we don't know for certain that ghosts, spirits, or other paranormal events might actually manipulate EMF, the theory is out there. Many people utilize this equipment, and many people feel that they have received intelligent communication with it. So, in order to keep our net of evidence as wide as possible, we will continue to utilize the KII EMF reader in our spectral searches.